We're working on the 1955 Buick Century Dynaflow transmission, and I'm working on the torque converter, and this is the stator, variable pitch stator. You can see these things look like little wings, and it basically has two positions. Um, Normal driving would be like this, and then under full throttle, these things would collapse, multiplying your torque. Basically, uh, more, a variable stall speed converter is what we have here. One of the problems I had is this screw right here is a clutch style head screw, and of all the tools I own, I did not have one, and I finally found one, and I had to buy an entire kit, which was only $9, but to get this little, it's called a clutch style or butterfly, and these things were super tight. I've already got them out, but I want to show you a trick so you don't damage anything. Is to use your drill press or a arbor press or any kind of press to put a little bit of pressure on the bolt as you turn it, so you don't strip them out, and that way you don't have to worry about stripping out the screw. It works real well. You don't want to get carried away, just a little bit of pressure, more than you could do by pushing on it, and they come right out. So that way I didn't damage the screw in any way, because they have a tendency to slip out. So if you got a drill press, use it for that purpose. Don't get carried away. Just put a little pressure on it, and you'll save a lot of screws that way. The next step will be taking this thing apart because we want to replace the seals. Okay, we have all the screws out, and now there's also two dowel pins here. And what we want to do is carefully rock this back and forth, and this it splits the pins for those little veins there, so usually a good wiggle. There it goes. So you got the little lines there that coincide with that. That can only go on one way, so we're not going to worry too much about it. The bushings look good. They fit tight on the shaft, so we're not going to worry about those. The next step, we'll be pulling that snap ring out. We've got the snap ring off now, and then there's a washer, retaining ring I guess you'd call it, and now all this is exposed. I really don't want to take these out of here, but I don't know how this is going to go. All I really wanted to do is push out the piston, and if that's possible to do without messing everything else up, there, that's what I wanted to accomplish. Okay, and here's the sealing ring right here, the steel ring. I wanted to inspect this, and I wanted to inspect that bore to be absolutely sure it's in good condition. It appears to be okay. I may not have to do anything to this except clean it up and put it back together. But this is kind of critical to make sure everything is good before you put this thing back together. So that's what I'm going to do next, is kind of inspect everything. And if everything looks good, we're going to put her back together. Okay, I removed the piston, and I did have a new sealing ring in the transmission kit. So what I did, I took some wet and dry sandpaper. I think it was about 600 grit. I just kind of scuffed this up a little bit, cleaned that up, washed it in solvent, and we're going to be putting this together. I didn't want to remove the vanes because that could be a real problem, getting them all back in the same place. Put a little pre-lube on this thing, and we'll get this piston back in place. Might be a little trickier because I have a new sealing ring here, so it's not going to probably go as good as, there we go. I'm doing this a little different because I don't want to lose these veins, so I've put that in, and I'm going to take this back off. There we go. And hopefully I can get that down in there, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I did have a new sealing ring in the kit, so I went ahead and put the new sealing ring on. And I also used some 600 wet and dry sandpaper, and I cleaned this all up in there, scuffed it a little bit. So we're ready to put this back in. And I don't think it's going to need too much help. Let's see. Hopefully not. Well, it's going to be a little bit of more of a problem than I thought here. Yeah, it's going to want to. Just about got it. There we go. Okay, let's go in there. Now there's just one sealing ring on the outside. The other one has like a spiral cut in it. Hopefully I won't lose these veins here. Okay. There we go. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun here, getting these things just right. Okay, get that down in there. Okay. After a couple of tries, I realized that the best way to put this on here is with these hanging down. I was trying to do it the other way. They seem to lay in there real nice when I do that. I do have my snap ring on and my washer and the piston in place. So then I just have to line up my dowels and slide this on. Like I said, I tried a couple different ways, and it seems like the best way is to do it is with the veins hanging down. I was trying to do it with them flat, and that did not work. They just kept falling out of place. So I'm just going to put a couple screws in. I'm not going to tighten them. I'm just going to tighten it with my fingers and make sure that it functions before I torque them down. I don't want to bend anything or screw something up at this point. And that puts it together. My piston is down. You can see it is working. My piston is going in and out. I got my new sealing ring in there. So that worked out real well. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my other screws in. I'm going to check to see if there's a torque spec on those. I'm not sure that there is, but I will look. If there is, I will use the same method in the drill press, and we'll torque those down. Well, we got the stator sealing ring installed, and we're ready to put those clutch head screws back in. And I got them just snugged up a little bit, but I want to tighten them. The book really doesn't tell you how tight to get these, so we're kind of on our own there. So I guess it's going to be good and tight. I don't want to get carried away, but put a little pressure on them. There. I would say we're probably at about maybe 8 or 9 foot-pounds, I'm guessing. And we're just going to go around and do the opposite one. I've already tested it. It does Everything is freed up, there's nothing binding. So we'll get these tightened up. Okay. Okay, we're going to go across this one now. Okay. Jump across here. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to keep going. I'll finish those. And that part of it will be done. Well, we just tightened our clutch head screws. And pistons in and everything. We're going to be putting this back together. And basically this just slides in there, and not really much to it. I had one thing I wanted to mention. I didn't mention it before, I don't think. This surface right here is kind of gouged up, so I just lapped that on some wet sandpaper on a piece of glass just to knock off any rough edges. I don't think it has any significance whatsoever. I don't like rough edges unless they're supposed to be there. So we got that, and we got little locks that drop in there. Get those in place. Okay. And let's see, we've got to pop our snap ring in here. If I remember right, I had to do it right over a hole to get it to pop in there. There we go. And I like to move them and get them away from the hole so they're out there. So that's in place. So this is the old washer, but that's about as far as I can go for right now. And I do have the little wave springs and the rollers in there for our overrunning clutch, but that's when you actually start assembling it together. So it's a very unique little, fascinating little, it's almost like a jet engine, like you find in a turbine engine or something. It's kind of cool, and I can't even imagine what that would cost to have that built today, something like this. So there we are for the stator. That's pretty much it for it, and we'll move on from there. I made a very interesting discovery. We were checking the last video, I believe we were checking the clearance, and I was using modeling clay on the thrust here, and I pulled it off, and I didn't have to really do too much of a test here because I quickly measured it, and I'm basically 100,000ths of clearance. Now the book is calling for 18 to 29. So I did a little investigation here. I started looking around. I started looking at my parts. I have a Buick parts manual and a service manual. And according to that manual, they are showing select fit spacers right in this area that go over the springs and the rollers for the overrunning clutch, and then this goes on top of it. This is what came off. No spacers, and if you look underneath, there's a wear pattern. So there were no spacers in this, so the guy who put this thing together didn't put the spacers back in. I don't know how it worked with 100,000ths clearance, but it did. I really don't understand that, because I thought I was always told that thrust washers and end play in these torque converters are very critical. But as you can see, there's a definite wear pattern in that thrust washer. And the book shows a 10, 20, and a 30 thousandths select fit washer, and you use as many as you need to space this out. And then when you get it all together, you should have your 18 to 29 thousandths right here. So now, instead of being able to assemble this, I now have to call and get some spacers, and hopefully they have them. Hopefully I can get them, because there was never any in this transmission. And I really don't know what to say except for the fact that the guy that worked on it is probably laying under his bench somewhere. So the saga continues. It's never easy.